Welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. Clearly from where I am, we're talking another Star Frontiers video. And this is actually kind of continuing on the trilogy, the saga, of Bubba the Dralasite and his buddy Belgrube. Last time I mentioned how they had started off on Zicket and that was not working out very well, so they decided to jump ship, or jump planet, and come here to Terledrom, the planet in the Frommeltar star system that had a very interesting history, but it ended up, Bubba's time on Terledrom ended up being a classic case of be careful what you wish for. So I'm going to talk probably a condensed version. What ended up happening on Terledrom for Bubba was actually kind of dull, and that leads to the lesson to be learned. Be careful what you wish for. So, Bubba and Belgrube land at Sing Sing, which is the capital city of Terledrom. I should probably reiterate from last time. So, in my campaign, the Frommeltar star system that both Terledrom and also Groth orbit, the planets that orbit that star, in my campaign, Groth was the home planet of the Dralasites. This is their home star system. And the Vrusks were the first ones to meet and make contact with the Dralasites. And so, although the Vrusks found the Dralasites on their home world were very chill and relaxed, cool people, they found them hard to, pull your socks up and start doing some work. So it was decided by both races, okay, why don't we have a second planet? There's a ringed world in this star system that has a decent gravity, and it's called Terledrom. And the Vrusks thought, you know what, we'll set up a base there as sort of a coexistence thing. Your people can come to Terledrom, our people can come to Terledrom. We'll work together, we'll make this planet our sort of agreed upon meeting place, our Brussels, if you will. And the fact is that in my campaign, Terledrom being a ringed planet, it was like a moon landscape, and that's why we're here. This is what Terledrom looked like. I kind of base a lot of this on any show that would the moon as one of its settings. I kind of went with, okay, no atmosphere, gray rock, craters, that kind of stuff. But because it's an important planet for the history of the place, it has fairly major cities spread across it. I guess they would have a little bit of mining, although that wasn't their forte. It was more the technology, the industry factor, because again, Groth, the Dralasites there, are just kind of lackadaisical and just being chill and relaxed kind of people. And so the Vrusks were kind of like, well, let's kick up industry a little bit, because that's what we do. We're business people. We want to have you guys working. So, or if not have you guys working, that sounds a little mean. We want this to be a meeting place where both of us can come together to work and to set up industry and factories and that kind of stuff. So it's a manufacturing world with moon bases everywhere. So, back to Bubba and Belgrube. They arrive at Sing Sing, the capital city, which I thought, okay, I'm just going to basically steal this image, which is either Moonbase Alpha or it's the space base you see in 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's a very rough image that I grabbed. I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to make that be the quick touchstone. I can show a picture to my players and say, okay, this is where you're at, a moon base. Okay, yeah, we got it, sure, all right. So we do that. They arrive and they're kind of checking it out, and it's like living in a shopping mall, or Moonbase Alpha basically was the thing I was going for. All different races, all traveling around. I actually decided what would be smart is to flesh out this image, like make it a huge, expansive place. I don't know from Space 1999 how large Moonbase Alpha is supposed to be, but this place, this city is like 200 kilometers across, so possibly bigger, I would think. And I actually separated out the different areas. What's the industrial area? What's the commercial? Where's residential? And there's even a section called the mammal sector. We'll get to that in a minute. So I've fleshed out, what is Sing Sing like? What do people do here? What's the main crux of people arriving? And when Bubba and Belgrube arrive, ready for some new adventure, they're like, right, ooh, this is kind of different. This is kind of interesting. a very big departure from Zicket. After a little while, so they get some hotel residential stuff. After a little while, they're like, well, it's kind of tricky to find work, as is almost the case everywhere. Why don't we maybe take a monorail to the neighboring city, Verisit, and just see if there's any opportunities there. Big city, maybe it's kind of locked in with all the different corporations. We might have more luck if we go to Verisit. So we get on a monorail, and unfortunately, it breaks down as it's leaving the city. And Bubba noticed this Yazarian was starting to kick up a fuss. He figured it was terrorists. There's this whole thing about Zicket terrorists, maybe, setting off bombs and stuff like that. And Bubba steps in because this Yazarian is panicking all the other passengers. And he's like, hold on, buddy. Now, Andrew, the player, had made Bubba kind of a technician guy, but he's starting to think, maybe with all this conflict going on, I should maybe learn some martial arts. So he kind of subdued the Yazarian guy. And a fella on the train system, on the monorail, was like, oh, thank goodness, you've saved the day. Why are you on this monorail going to Verisit? And Bubba was like, well, I'm having a hard time finding work back at Sing Sing. So this guy, who runs the Hagrexim Cosmetics company, says, hey, there's a couple of jobs in my cosmetic firm for a couple of security monitors. If you and your friend Balgrube are available, I would happily give you a job. So Andrew was like, okay, good. Well, we're off to a good start here. Though that ended up being weird later on. Anyway, so I'm thinking to myself, okay, now they've got a job in a building on a moon base. What does this building look like? Because, if you've got a mining town or a city block or something like that, you can lay out floors and things like that. But I'm thinking, I got to wrap my head around from a design point of view, what does a building or even a residence on a moon base look like? Like if you're in this giant structure that Sing Sing is, this moon base alpha type of place, how does that function? What does that city even look like internally? If Andrew and, if Bubba and Balgrube are doing this job as a security agent, what's their desk and where do they go and what's the cafeteria like? So I actually fleshed out or mapped out the Hagrexim Cosmetic Company. I made all the rooms, and it has, because it's the Rusks, it's kind of this, I'm going for like a beehive kind of hexagonal kind of look. And I thought to myself, there would be a point where the walls are no longer belonging to this company, they belong to the next company or to like a corridor or a restaurant or whatever. So a little bit like being in some massive mall. There's like your shop is here, but you are attached to other shops. So this weird looking map is sort of this idea. I was thinking to myself, how does that work? How do I map out this one building on a huge complex? So I'm going to put links to all of these images, as I have before, to anybody who wants to maybe have a look. And if you're ever thinking to yourself, I want my players to go through kind of a weird place, here's a shot. Check out these maps, because I think they kind of work. One of the things that came up in conversation was, okay, so for shipping, do we put these things on a truck? Like, how does stuff go? And I thought, no. There would be like a subterranean level that people don't go to, where you throw your package into this, basically like a dumbwaiter, and it goes down to this system of like treadmills that go here, there, and everywhere, and there's a computerized system that knows how people can pick up their package through like this mailbox system. Something that I thought was so futuristic and fantastical, but has kind of started to happen in real life. I mean, I think in certain major airports and places like that, they've got little drones, little wheeled robots that roll around and deliver stuff. So that was sort of what I was going for. Either robots are doing it in Sing Sing, or this underground little, whenever you put your luggage in the airport, the system of trolleys and pulleys and things that take it everywhere and know what airplane you're going to. That idea was working for the shipping. And I think there was one adventure where Balgrube, I think, went into that tunnel system. I can't remember. But this is a slight side note, and this has to do with the subject line of this video. There was one line of conversation they had. They were waiting to hear back from somebody, and they were like, well, I'll rent a movie. Okay, sure. And then they had to immediately go to meet up with that person. And Andrew made a comment about like, yeah, but I still got to return the video. And I thought, I remember saying to him, now this is 2001 we're talking, or earlier? Was it the late 90s? Anyway, 25 almost years ago. And Andrew was like, yeah, but I got to return the video. And we were living in a blockbuster world back then. But I remember saying to him at the time, you know what? No, I've thought through this futuristic moon-based world. They wouldn't have a physical thing that they give you that a movie is on. It would be like emailed to you, and then you would just watch it, and then you would delete the email. And that seemed so crazy far-fetched futuristic at the time. It was like, well, through this network of computers, there would be a way, kind of like the internet, you know, the internet that we're using now with our emails and stuff, kind of like that. You would have a way of just watching a movie, and then you would be done with it. And I thought to myself, now that's crazy talk, because there's no way a file as big. I think MP3s were just starting, and Napster and all that kind of stuff. And those were, you know, several megabytes in size. But I thought a movie's going to be huge in comparison. You can't just send that as an email. What are you, nuts? Now, I was also at the time studying telecommunications, and we did a whole thing on like fiber optics and the speed with which they can deliver data. And just in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, maybe they would like, I don't know, they would somehow send you the file and you could just watch it. And that's why I said to myself later on, I was like, when Netflix started to kick in and become more than just you could rent discs, but you could actually stream movies, I remember thinking to myself at the time, hey, I came up with that idea on Terledrom. Netflix owes me a cut. Totally true. Anyway, so yeah, this is this futuristic world that we're living in. Unfortunately, we were finding that it was a little bit dull, some of the adventures. Like, okay, back to the Hegrexum Cosmetic Company. There was this volunteer Pickwick, a little podum actually, who was helping them test out this new shampoo, and it was giving him dry, flaky skin. And then it turned out this was all some conspiracy, because being a sneaky Pickwick, he was actually in cahoots with the competition. So he was throwing his results and this kind of stuff, and it led to this little intrigue. But even at that point, Andrew was just like, when that was all said and done, Andrew was like, so it's the shampoo conspiracy? Okay. I laughed when I remembered that phrase. I was like, yeah, basically it's the shampoo conspiracy. Moving forward, a Vrusk lady decides to approach them. These two have been kind of traveling in different circles now, the two Dralasites, Bubba and Balgrub. They've been going to the mammal sector a lot. Through this Pickwick that they encountered, he lives in the mammal sector. A lot of people, like humans, Usarians, Pickwicks, they all live in the mammal sector. And it was kind of this area, a little bit like, I was watching Big Trouble in Little China, and like the Chinatown idea from that movie. I thought, yeah, what about a space age version of that? What about if all the mammals kind of, they're way out of their league or out of their territory. We're now talking the Dralasite home system, and the Vrusks have built Terledrom with the Dralasites. So all of the humans and Usarians and Pickwicks might feel a little, and Ifschnitz and even Gablisum. They're all thinking, I'm a little feeling intimidated here. I'm going to kind of live in my own little town area. So the mammal sector kind of became well known. Bubba and Balgrub's contacts, these adventures they went on, were leading them into the mammal sector a lot, where things were a little bit rough, a little bit kind of bad part of town sort of mentality going on. And this Vrusk woman noticed these two constantly going into the mammal sector, and she's like, hey, I've got a little side project that I wouldn't mind hiring you guys for, since you seem to know a lot of people. First of all, I need a driver. I need somebody who can handle this big 18-wheeler sort of truck, explorer type class truck. I need to go out into the lunar landscape. And Bubba was training up for that. And he was like, yeah, sure, we'll do it. Her name was Chitelrabik Fixkorzan. These Vrusk names were a lot to tackle back then. So Chitelrabik hires the two of them to drive out. She knows where a freighter has crashed, and she wants to go and see what treasures there might be there before any of the people who own the thing come and scout it out and make sure all their cargoes gets back. And she knows that's not really in keeping with the Vrusk way, but these two are they're Dralasites, so she instantly kind of trusts them a little bit more than a human or Usarian she might hire. And she says, well, if you'll drive me out there, maybe we can scout out and find something. So they do. They get to this huge ruined wreck all across the lunar landscape. And they find basically some spacesuits that are worth a bit of cash and also a huge quantity of sulfur. Now, the company that runs the freighter company, they actually sent some people, so they decided to hide. I think there might have been a little bit of combat. I think they subdued one guy, and they thought, okay, there's way more of them than there are of us, and we're actually in the wrong. Let's take our sulfur, let's take our spacesuits, and let's get out of town before they spot us. So they get back to Sing Sing, and they try and sell this stuff off. Now, the spacesuits are pretty easy. They're Rusk spacesuits, and that's easy enough to get rid of. The sulfur was a bit of a weird one. They go into the mammal sector where somebody says, yeah, I know somebody who's looking for some sulfur. Let me get you in touch with them. They do. They go back out into the lunar landscape to meet up with them. It's a cadre, a group, if you will, of Hummas. Now, in my campaign, the Hummas were a little bit more mysterious. They weren't just like cookie-cutter Klingon-type warrior race. There was something up with the Hummas. I might actually do a video about them someday. They had like their own little... they hung around only with other Hummas. They had different breeds of Hummas that didn't seem to get along very well, and they sure as heck weren't very friendly with anybody. They didn't get along with anybody. And there was always this, like, what is with these guys? They're kind of a suspicious bunch. And Andrew was just like, why do they want to buy so much sulfur? So he's kind of looking it up on the internet. What is sulfur good for? Well, you use it in farming. Okay, well, we're on a lunar landscape, so I don't think that's it. You can also make explosives out of it. Which one is it likely to be? Anyway, sale goes through fairly straightforward, but it was Andrew's first experience with the Hummas, and he was scared. They were a rough bunch of people that he was not wanting to ever cross swords with again, and he would later, but I'll talk about that at the end. But then time goes by, a month or so. There's been a few little adventures here and there, but they are very small scale. Like, after about a month, Bubba was talking about Groove. He's like, this is a nice change of pace from Zicket. It's kind of low-key and calm, but I'm kind of getting bored here. Like, the most exciting thing we've experienced so far is the shampoo conspiracy. Like, can we maybe think about moving on to another spot? It's great that people here are, working and doing their thing, and that's fine, but it's a pretty dull... Given this is an adventure game, it's a pretty dull setting. So let's maybe ask around. Anybody know something about somebody traveling on? And they're hanging out in the mammal sector when they're doing this, and one of their friends that they'd had a few contacts with, a black market representative, he was like, oh, well, if it's a bit of adventure you're looking for, I happen to know of a Yazarian freighter that's headed to the Dremune system. And Andrew was like, sure, okay, cool. I'll look up the captain's name, because it's, being a Yazarian, it's a very unusual one. Nephi Uchane Nikensi. Nikensi. Captain Nikensi. He meets up with these two. They've had a little bit of a reputation now, and he's like, oh, so you guys are looking for a little bit of adventure, huh? Well, we're going to Outer Reach. And Bubba and Balgru were like, yeah, sure, that'd be great. Can we hitch a ride? We got the money. Now, those who are into Star Frontiers will probably know how the ironic innocence of those two Dralasites must sound right now. Yeah, we'll go to Outer Reach. That sounds like fun. That ended up being Bubba's descent into a living hell. And I'm going to save that for my next video. But before I kind of cancel out of here, those who enjoy the ship design for Star Frontiers, I've actually taken a picture, or this is the picture I drew of Captain Nikensi's ship. You'll notice that it's a weird, like a wedge shape. I thought that was kind of distinctive. I wanted the Yazarian ships to look a little different from everybody else. Kind of like how Klingon ships are very instantly recognizable in Star Trek. I wanted the Yazarian ships to have a certain style to them, and I thought, well, there'll always be these thin razor blade ships, and as a freighter, that makes sense. You could just park all of your stuff on either side of the blade, and it's a cool design, I thought. Those who are very nitpicky will notice, hey, you've got the third engine attached to the main hull. That's a no-no. They want to be out on struts so that the atomic energy or the radiation doesn't get to the crew. I actually detail in the map floor layout of this ship. There's actually an area that nobody goes to, and it's reinforced heavily. And I couldn't find the original drawing. This is kind of from a photocopy. It's a little rough and shaky looking, but I'll, again, link to it down below. If anybody wants to maybe develop a ship like this that looks like a blade and has very long, thin hallways and long, thin corridors and uses ladders to get everywhere, that's what my Usarian ship, that was the style I was going for. Feel free. This is all for your benefit. I hope it helps if you can make this map work for your game, or maybe if you'll at least get some ideas from it. And again, when I saw that drawing I had done for the ship originally, I thought, ooh, yeah, I'd like to maybe hang on to that and share it with everybody. So again, links down below. You can have a look at all these pictures if you like. But I'm going to leave it there because Bubba and Balgrube hopped on the ship with Captain Akansi and his Usarian crew for a bit of fun. Let's go to Dramune. Let's check out that planet called Outer Reach. Again, that was Bubba's descent into hell. And that's why I say, be careful what you wish for. You may get it. Bubba was looking for some adventure, some fun, something, kind of interesting to happen because Terledrom was turning into quite a dull little adventure, a dull setting. Well, it became so nightmarish that Andrew swore he would never go there again. And we'll be saving that one for the third and final part of this Bubba trilogy. So I hope you like that. And until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.